Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to be doing a weekly meta breakdown for the Explorer format, best of one in this particular video. For those of you who are new to the channel or to just what we do here, once a week we look at each of the arena formats. We kind of split the videos best of one, best of three at times, and we'll look at a bunch of stats to see what are the top performing decks of the week. So if you're interested in these deck lists, I post them all in the video description so you can easily import them in. We kind of look at trends and kind of see how things are moving week to week and how the meta evolves. And we're getting all this data from Untapped.gg, which you see on the screen. It's a companion tool that runs alongside your arena client, tracks your win rates, loss rates, tells you what decks you can craft, what you're short, lots of like in-game overlay stuff. So it's free to get started with that. Link is in the video description down below. So if you want to install that, just click the link. And then you get access to like information like this and deck tracking and stuff like that. So jumping into it, this is Explorer Best of One. We've done standard videos that are up. We'll do the Explorer and Historic probably won't be this week. I'll start next week as well with Historic, generally because it's the largest card pool. New cards tend to be the slowest to kind of trickle into that format. But what we have here is Explorer Best of One, April 28th. To today, which is May 9th, so a little bit more than a week, but kind of from the inception of the format. This is the first time we're really doing this deep dive with the data, so I wanted to get the biggest pool. And we have 57,000 games of Best of One that were played from the Platinum to Mythic rank. So the top performing deck right now, based on win rate percentage, is Mono Blue Spirits. So kind of a cool thing with Untapped, like I mentioned, with the deck tracking. If I want to build this deck, I'm missing 8 wild cards. I'm missing Rattlechains, I'm missing Supreme Phantoms. So I need 8 rare wild cards. I sync my collection here, and I have 21 rare wild cards. So I can play this deck if I want. I just got to do some crafting. So what we have here is kind of a tempo mono blue deck that's got the spirit sub theme. So you have flash threats and like Spectral Sailor, Rattlechains protects your spirits, Shacklegeist can tap things down. You have Supreme Phantom that also acts as a lord, and then you're playing the full 4 Faceless Havens that allow you to have more spirits. You get payoffs with like Icon of Ancestry to buff your squad. Geistlight Snare gets reduced cost for the number of spirits you have, so it can be kind of a 1 mana leak in a way. You got Spell Pierce as kind of tempo plays. You have Curious Obsession for card draw, Slip Out the Back as protection, and then you have some more counters in Lofty Denial, and then Brazen Borrower is Bounce Tempo. One Otawara as well in the mana base. Up next, so there's a lot of different flavors of Winota. This one has the highest win rate right now. We're seeing some that have the Fable the Mirror Breaker in it to kind of help you dig. This particular version is playing Legion Warboss. There's kind of a lot of configurations. Some are playing the Courier. What's it called? There's a lot of Winotas. Like this one's got Adanto Vanguard in it. This one's got like the Fable the Mirror Breaker. There's a Neoform version. This is the card. The Courier's Briefcase with the extra treasure that you could generate. Gets like some card draw. It's another way around, but I'll post one list here. But basically, the core of this deck is you're playing non-humans that allow you to trigger Winota, join our forces. That lets you put humans into play. So your main payoffs are Brutal Cathar, Kenrith, typically Tovolar's Huntmaster, and Angrath's Marauder to double your damage. You have early ramp in Llanowar Elves and Gilded Goose, which then also trigger the Winota. Fable versus Legion Warboss is kind of iffy. While the Fable allows you to kind of have some utility and play more of a fair mid-range game, also helping you dig for Winota, Legion Warboss can kind of take over games on its own and kind of presents a threat that they have to deal with, or it'll pretty much run away with it. So kind of a version there. Is this the best version? Maybe, maybe not. You see there's quite a few variants, but this is kind of the core of what you're looking at for these Winota shells. Similarly with Mono Red, there's kind of 2 shells. Very similar to the Historic version. We don't have Fanatical, like whatever that Goblin is that gives something haste, but you have like a Burning-Tree package, Robber of Rich, you got Rampage and Ferocidon, Chain Whirler, Bone Crusher, Torbrand. This version is playing Pit Fighter. There's also this version here, which I think this version might be a little cleaner, all things considered. You have Fanatical Firebrand, which can be used as a removal spell, a little bit better into like the Winota decks. You see a lot of Winota being X1s, so being able to pick off like Llanowar Elf on turn 1 has a lot of utility. And then this version, Ember Cleave, and Torbrand. The Vortex, there hasn't been as many Fires of Invention decks to really punish, and there's a lot more of these aggressive mirrors, so Vortex doesn't have much utility. So I'm actually not going to post this list. I think this list overall is a little bit better. The win rates are pretty comparable, but I think this is a cleaner list, and it's actually, I think, more budget friendly, because these are uncommons versus the Pit Fighters that are rares that are coming in. So then we have kind of two flavors of the Parhelion combo, and if you want to see videos on both, I have it all set in one video. But there's a Mardu and then there's an Esper vehicles. And they're basically built around Greasefang, Kiba Boss, and Parhelion to cheat this into play and deal 13 damage and leave 2 4/4 angels behind. The Esper version tends to be a little bit more all-in combo. You have ways of looting in Faithful Mending, as well as Tainted Indulgence, put stuff into the graveyard. The one thing, I kind of played a slightly different version. The Deadly Dispute seemed odd to me in this list because you really only had the Stitcher Supplier and then a couple copies of Undead Butcher to play off these. So it seemed kind of backwards to have this, where if we look at the Mardu Vehicles version, we have Voldaren Epicure, we have Stitcher Supplier, we have Bloodtithe Harvester, we have the token off Fable the Mirror Breaker. There's just a lot more we can Deadly Dispute off of. Core of the deck's very similar. I also like in the Esper version the new Obscura Charm. It's a way to instant speed reanimate a Greasefang. It's also could be used as removal or just a counter spell. So kind of a way around with that. All in all, in the video that I did, I had a better win rate with Esper, but it was a small sample size. But I think the Mardu version's a better deck in the sense that it's got an ability to play a more fair game. I was playing the Esper deck into a control deck, and they just tempoed me out. Like, bounce my thing, kill my thing. There's just not much gameplay. Where this version, you can nickel and dime your opponent a lot better. Like, Bloodtithe Harvester is still just 3 power on turn 2. You have the blood tokens that can easily kind of cycle through your deck, help you get rid of the wrong half problem, and kind of playing with that. But kind of those tempos. Then we have mono blue tempos. So we saw the Spirits version. There's some overlap in this, but this one's more Protect the Queen style. So we see like Terramander, Storm Tamer, Spectral Sailor coming in here. Sea Dasher for like instant speed draw. Some Brazen Borrowers. This version's actually probably more budget friendly. If we look at the list as well, these are all commons or uncommons. So really your only rares, it's like 4 mythics, 6 rares to build this deck. So if you're looking for a budgety friendly deck, this is maybe to get started. It's got a decent win rate, 58%. And then lastly, we have Jeskai Fires. This is a Yorion combo deck that's looking to use Fires of Invention with a bunch of tokens to cheat into play Agent of Treachery thanks to Transmagnify. Otherwise, it plays just basically as a Jeskai control deck. Portable Holes, Rip Aparts is removal. You make tokens with like Birth of Melides, Fable the Mirror Breaker, Wandering Emperor, Shark Typhoon. So you kind of got a couple different plans there. The one thing, this is a little odd, and you probably, I guess it's just a cycle land. So some of these decks in Pioneer, they actually play 4-color for Esika's Chariot as just another token maker. I think the cleaner mana base is a little bit better because then you get to play more copies like Castle Vantress and just more mana sinks. I guess just having access to the Ketria Triome here is just as you have the copies of Fire Invention up, you can just cycle these with the mana that you have up to get more spells into play. Lastly, what I was having success with, and this was kind of weird. So at one point, I'm playing back Rakdos midrange, but kind of a little bit of an unorthodox. I had Meathook Massacres. For the longest time, I wasn't playing Thoughtseize. I was really trying to build a deck to beat up on Winota, and we can see like 9-1 against Winota. These are also Winota games against the 4-color variant, and then a couple copies here where they just never got Winota out, just killing him that way. So really positive matchup. The 2 worst matchups I ran into, as you can see, mono red, especially recently. So at one point I had like almost an 80% win rate. I was 30-7 with the deck, and I just kind of fell, or not 30 and I had a good win rate, like 9-1, 6-3, kind of coming through. I had a pretty high win rate. I still like over 60%. Ended up finishing 63, but ran into a bad streak against mono red. I went like 6-10 in the last little bit, but these were like losses to mono red. If we look, just kind of like weird mixes of games, kind of playing a Lost on 9 Lives deck where I just never drew anything to kind of, they had 4 9 lives on the field within the first 5 turns. Just kind of ways around, but still think it's a decent deck if the meta shifts back. So mono red's a tough matchup, and the Greasefang deck's a tough matchup. Mono red can be built to beat, but then I probably hedge against my Winota matchup, so I'm valuing having ways at instant speed to deal with Winota. Fatal Push, there's ways to trigger it off like blood tokens or treasures to trigger the revolt. Some Heartless Axe in there, the meat hooks to sweep up as well. That's like one of my older versions of the deck. The more recent version, we went back to Thoughtseize, Fatal Push in there. Kind of the back and forth, like I was running into more combo, then you want the Thoughtseize. Then I was starting to run into more mono red, so then you want to scale back. Thoughtseize is kind of bad into that matchup. I never liked Crocs on it. I don't like Bloodchief's Thirst because it's a sorcery speed that doesn't scale well to kill like the bigger creatures. You have to pay 4 mana into it, which is a lot of mana. Where Strangle can deal with most creatures in the format, other than like the 4 toughness ones. But really, it was just trying to do like mid-range fair game. With your top end. I had Lolth a bit, I was trying out Soaring, it was kind of back and forth with that, but went 44-26 with this deck. Like I said, I had a pretty high win rate at one point, kind of coming in, like 18-7, and then I kind of like fell off here, just a bad win rate, kind of in the middle there, where we were doing about 500, 72% down to like 49% feels kind of bad. Even like in here, you can see we had a nice little streak up and then it kind of broke down. But this is kind of the deck tracking that you could see from Untapped. You could see all the versions of the deck. You can see what you played against, even against your opponent's deck. So if we want to see what our opponent played here, we can see the cards that were in their deck that we were able to see. So if you run into your opponent's deck and you're like, hey, that's a cool deck. What is it? Another way you can kind of look in that respect. In any case, going to wrap this up. Let me know what you've been enjoying most with Explore, and we will catch you next time. Thanks for watching.